Ladies and gentlemen of the Treasure Valley and beyond. If we don't know each other, my name is David. I get to be the pastor at Calvary Chapel in Star. I want to introduce you to one of my favorite people. This is my wife, Rochelle.
Hi.
A little bit bashful maybe, but some great stories to tell. And what we want to share is what God has been doing through this new church plant, Calvary Chapel here in Star. There's a lot of stories we're going to share, a lot of testimonies of just the moving of God in ways that I've never seen or heard of before. If you want to listen in, obviously we'll be on the radio this week, but you can always go to calvarychapelstar.org to watch the rest of these episodes or listen. And look, if you love just kingdom building, I know some people love sharing the gospel, others love discipling, and some love to give towards kingdom work. God has provided and let us steward some land, 17 acres up here in Star. We're looking to break ground and build. And if you want to invest into that and partner with us, we would love to talk and just share the vision. Or again, go to calvarychapelstar.org. The little drop-down tab under About is the Kingdom Building section. So check it out. But what I was taught, and I think my wife also, we were wonderfully discipled by our pastor, just being young in the Lord, being part of that same church for well over 20 years. Something I'd always heard the older, wiser men say is that whatever you do, make sure it starts in prayer. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of prayer, a lot of fasting, 4 years of waiting on the Lord before we would move here and the church would begin. But 6 months leading up to the church start were these prayer meetings. And we want to share some things that God had done. We had come out to visit some friends right after Christmas of 2021. We were here for New Year's, I think. Is that right?
Yep.
New Year's. So it's now 2022, January 1st. The Lord had confirmed on that trip that not only Idaho, but it was Star, Idaho specifically, we were supposed to be planting the church in. And gosh, before we left, you had the idea. You're like, we should probably get some people together and pray.
Well, we were looking where to go on Sunday morning. And I said, okay, well, question, if we're going to try and go to a church, but if we're coming out here to plant, then why don't we call everybody that we know that lives here and just get together and pray? But it was like 17 degrees outside. So we met at the little corner of State Street because I loved this plot of corn that was there. And I was like, That's going to be where our church is going to be. And I was like, all excited on that. And we stood out there and this older man goes, I don't know about you, but what was it? Was it 12 or 17 degrees? I don't remember.
It was cold.
It was freezing.
It was well below freezing.
Yeah. And he goes, there's a coffee shop across the street at that Ridley's. Let's go over there. And so we all piled in our cars and we walked over there.
Yep. And that was good old Tom.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny. I remember standing in the parking lot with you and you say, we called everybody we knew. I think that was 7 people.
Yeah. It wasn't money.
And so a handful of people showed up. Our thought was, well, yeah, we'll stand out in the parking lot. We'll pray together for 10 minutes and then go on our way.
Yep.
Freezing cold. And so if you've ever been to the Ridley's in Star, there's a coffee shop, a little cafe attached to it. And we were the only ones there. Sat down at these little aluminum tables with our kids and 7 people, 2 of which we'd never met till that day.
Right.
And so already on our first prayer meeting, more people were there than we were anticipating.
Yeah. The theme.
That is the theme, right?
That's the
Lord,
theme.
Hold on. And I think we've been trying to pump the brakes for 2 years, and God's just got the pedal down. And so we go in. We knew a handful of people there, 5 of them, and then Tom and Jan were the ones that were new to our lives. Mm-hmm. But God was adding and doing and bringing people, and it began in prayer. Mm-hmm. And so we had shared, don't let this spread. We got to go back home. Our pastor knew what we were praying through, but we had extended family. I had a lot of ministries I was overseeing at the time. You were deeply involved. The kids had schooling. And so it was not time for the news to get out, but it was time to start praying. Mm-hmm. And so the agreement was, I remember asking Dave and Gilbert, I don't know if we can come back every month or not. I don't know if this is going to take 2 years or less. I think the plan was in 2 years we'll be back
in
to
a
start
couple
the
of years
church.
we'll be getting this thing going. And at that first prayer meeting, though, I remember this sweet lady, Jan, Tom's wife, she looked at our kids and says, I just feel really deeply that I need to tell you that whatever is going to happen quickly. Yeah. And you need to get ready for it. And I kind of like, she's crazy. No, and it's not going to be quick. We don't even know if we're actually coming. And oh my goodness gracious.
Well, and that's the beauty of it. I remember in that season of waiting and asking God for confirmation, not just when and where, not just when and what, but when. I'm sorry, I'm messing this all up.
Not where.
We knew where.
Yes.
We knew what.
Yes.
But the question was when.
Correct.
And Proverbs 21:5, right, says that if we are patient, that there will be plenty for those who are diligent.
Yeah.
Those who are diligent
Steady
surely
plodding.
shall have plenty. But and then here's the warning that God put in my heart from that same verse. But those who are hasty, it shall lead to poverty.
Which was great because like the testimony of years prior thinking that we were going to be heading there, it was more hasty. And so it was a beautiful lesson learned of like, slow it down, settle down in prayer, allow for God to do the moving and go at his pace, which we thought would have been slower. And it actually ended up being faster than what we anticipated.
Yeah.
And so being willing to go either slower or faster at his leading, I think was like a huge lesson of what those prayer meetings really prepared us for.
No doubt. And so leaving that first prayer meeting, I believe it was January 1st. It might have been January 2nd.
January 2nd, I think.
In Star, ourselves and 7 people in a little coffee shop attached to a grocery store. And it asked Gilbert and Dave, will you guys commit to having a once-a-month prayer meeting, whether we can make it back or not?
Yeah.
Right? That wisdom shared and infused into us by people over the years. Make sure it starts in prayer. And so they committed, yeah, we'll do it. Like, great. Don't spread the word. This isn't a hype thing, a promotion thing. This could be a 2-year-long prayer meeting thing. Yeah. Don't tell anybody. We get our kids, we load up, we start the long drive back home. And fascinatingly enough, the Lord provided for us to get back in February.
Yep.
And February's prayer meeting comes. It had been 4 weeks. It's supposed to be the same group of people, but instead of 7, there's 16 people there.
Yep.
Like, well, hold on. Hi, who are you?
Well, the funnest part was one of those families, they're now very involved at the church, but they were actually on an airplane coming to Star to purchase a home, and somebody told them about the prayer meeting, and they just showed up at that one. And it was so cool because it was like, oh my gosh, like, just how does the most random stories on the planet.
Like, you can't come up with this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what was your promotion strategy? Pray.
Yeah.
Like, we were praying.
But people were so excited that they were the ones. And it just reminds me so much of Jesus in the Gospels. He'd be like, but don't tell anybody. And then what do? They go running and leaping and telling and sharing all the things that God did.
Funny.
And it was just, it's kind of funny because to me, like, everybody was just so stirred. They were all bursting and so excited for the life that God was bringing to the Treasure Valley. Yeah.
And so actually against our request, people start sharing out of pure God-infused joy and anticipation.
And answers to prayer. They had been praying for this for years.
I'm so glad you just said that. Yeah. I don't know if you've heard it as much as I have. You probably have. But the amount of people who have come up and said, we've been praying for this kind of a thing for 5 years, for 8 years. Someone just a few weeks ago said, we've been praying for this kind of a thing for 10 years.
Yikes, yeah.
That's not us.
No, not at all.
We just get to step into the fruit of other people's prayer.
Yep.
And 10 years ago, people started asking and interceding that God would move in this kind of a way. And so, right, there's 16 people now at the second prayer meeting. It's like, what is happening? Yeah. Pray. And when I say prayer meeting, you guys, I'm the most simple person on planet Earth. If we say we're having a prayer meeting, that doesn't mean a bunch of fiery, flashy worship followed by a Bible study, and then I pray at the end and you say amen.
Right.
We're praying.
Yep.
Didn't give a Bible study. No one had a guitar. I talked for 10 minutes. We prayed for 50 and left.
Yeah.
Come back. That was February. Come back in March.
No, you guys can't. You brought the boys in March.
You couldn't come.
And I couldn't come. And I got a phone call back home because I was back with our girls who had school and one of them was sick and stuff. And I get a phone call from my friend Cassie, it was at her house. And she goes, I don't know, but there's like 68 people here and I don't think that this is going to fit in my house anymore. And I was like, are you kidding me? Send me pictures. And she sent me pictures and I just about choked. I could not believe the response. Like, how did that happen? What in the world? So that was hilarious to watch. She's FaceTiming me and I'm like, I don't recognize any of these people.
Oh, no.
I don't know anybody.
They're not our people. I mean, they're our people now.
Yeah,
it's super fun to do
Yeah.
church together. But we had seen January, 7 people. February, 16 people. March, we get out there, 30-something people. April, we're in Cassie's house.
Yeah.
There's 64, 60-something people there to pray.
Yeah.
Still following that model. Shared a few things from our heart that God had put, a verse or two, 10 minutes. No worship, and then prayer.
Yeah.
The funny thing was, we were like, man, Lord, I thought we were going to start in a house.
Yeah.
I really thought the church would start in a house. And leaving that day was really clear that we weren't going to be able to start in a house.
Right.
If 60 people are packing out a house for a prayer meeting, there'd probably be more for the Bible study and the church launch.
Yeah.
And so leaving that day, we had about 18 hours before the plane was going to be taking off. Paula, she runs our whole medical team now. She sent me this picture. What about this place? And it's called the River House.
Yes.
And like, oh my goodness.
God's so funny.
God is so funny. Yeah, right? House. And so she had managed somehow to get someone from the city to come walk us through and let me see it. It's like, this is great. And we had $20. Someone had just given the first tithe that day before in the bank. So we had $20 in the bank. And they say, all right, well, it's $150 an hour. You want to rent it? I'm like, yes. They didn't know we only had $20 in the bank, but like, let's do this.
Yeah.
And God has provided so miraculously and wonderfully the whole time. Showed up in May, and it had doubled again. It was our last prayer meeting. This was the one where we prayed and began to develop ministry groups.
Servants interest
meetings, parking, welcome, setup, worship, all the stuff we didn't even think we needed 8 weeks earlier.
Yeah.
And it would be about 6 weeks after that, we would move into town, into our house on June 11th.
Yes.
And the church started on June 12th.
Bad planning.
Crazy plan. But look, the stories are over the top of how God has provided and led and done the salvations, transformations, prodigals coming home. Absolutely glorious. And to him be the glory both now and forever. Mm-hmm. Look, again, if you want to follow along and listen to some of these stories, or God's moving in your heart to contribute and give and be part of this building project, check out calvarychapelstar.org, or you can tune in again tomorrow here on the radio for the next set. But whatever you do with all of your heart as unto the Lord, and don't look back. God bless you guys.